Looks like it's live.
Yeah, well, the slide is about halfway across, but yeah, it seems to be. Okay.
You ready? Okay. Yep. Right, good evening all to this extraordinary meeting of the Town Council on Tuesday the 13th of October. Usual caveats apply regarding the fact we're live on the Zoom obviously, and we're hopefully going live to YouTube as well. So agenda item 1, apologies for absence, please.
Apologies from Councillor Laura Miller.
Okay. Declarations of interest and requests for dispensation from anybody?
None received.
So David's video's gone off, so I can't see, or Alan as well. Right, agenda item 3, suspension of standing order 7A. Can I have a proposer, please?
Yeah, I'm happy to propose, Mr.
Councillor
Mayor.
Roach, any seconder? Councillor, I presume that's your hand, Dave Smith. There.
Yeah, Liz is working in well. It's fine.
I know, sorry. Okay, we've got a proposer and seconder. All those in favour, please show. Lovely, thank you very much indeed. Right, quickly moving on to agenda item 4. Consider request from the Arts and Leisure Manager to open the Arts Centre for the public performance without provision of temporary toilets upstairs.
Okay, so this is really down to Nick. Just as an explanation, the council appointed me as the designated premises supervisor, so legally the final decision to open rests with me. However, of course, I want to listen to the discussion and hear what everybody has to say to help me form that decision. So it's over to Nick, I think.
Nick, before you start, sorry, Colin, is Tony waiting there because he said he's trying to get in?
Oh, so yes, sorry. Yep, he's just coming now.
Sorry, Nick. Apologise.
Yeah, thank you. I have sent, I think Colin sent some notes round. I'm not too sure how many councillors have managed to see their emails, but I have sent some notes round just to kind of as an explanation of the situation where we were at. But if it's easier, I will just go through that document to say where we're at, and then I can take any questions or council can debate and make a decision, really.
Yeah, please do, Nick. I just realised they're sitting in the outbox.
Okay.
I wonder why I couldn't find it.
They're here, so if you can read them.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Okay, so Town Council previously agreed that subject to satisfying relevant COVID safety guidelines and other regulations in place, Haverhill Arts Centre could reopen for a limited programme of entertainment. Councillors were asked also for the approval of the installation of temporary toilets at the rear of the Arts Centre with a connecting tunnel. This project could enable the Arts Centre to operate on one level. This would reduce the number of potential touch points, enable staff to be on the same level of the building to monitor and serve the audience. Councillors asked at that meeting that planning and conservation were consulted to approve the plans. And this took some weeks to get an answer, let alone reach a planning advisor. Following the meeting, the District Council were asked to confirm planning consent, and this was also run past the Conservation Officer. I was also asked to get other quotes for a revised scheme, which could incorporate a decked area over the pit and the bar, between the bar and the walkway to get extra space. To date, I've approached 5 local building firms for quotes, but I've only had one company provide a quote for both options. I do understand that the local building trade is exceedingly busy at the moment. We have recently asked for quotes for double glazing at the Layson Centre, and one company said, well, I can give you a quote in 3 weeks' time, but I wouldn't be able to do any work until February. So the building trade is busy, but the lack of response from local builders has been quite overwhelming. I have used a kind of a level standard. It's quite difficult working with builders who you don't know. You don't know the quality of their work. I haven't approached any builders that haven't got a website, because I don't feel that that would be appropriate for the council to do so. I also understand that, you know, in terms of costs, the price of some building materials, particularly timber, has risen considerably since COVID, and also supply chains are quite difficult as well. I know a couple of people who are undertaking building projects who are waiting on materials, particularly timber. So the current situation really is that there is one quote on the shelf from a builder who the town council regularly work with, and if that we did go ahead with that quote, then the work should be completed by the end of November or early December. In order to reopen the Arts Centre in November, when we said we would look to use the existing toilets while construction of the at the rear of the building got underway. So it was told to council that there were some maintenance issues with the current toilets. These are regarding tiles coming off the walls. We've started the process of taking off those ones that are loose. So in order to get the loos back in working order, it would take approximately 2 days of the community warden's time. He is a proficient tiler, so he tells me. So we could make repairs to the existing toilets downstairs to make them able to be used as loos for the events. What we have done, we have completed the installation of magnetic holdbacks on the doors in all of the corridors downstairs, which link them to the fire alarm system, so that the doors can be held open without them having little wedges stuffed underneath them. So they're held open safely, and that obviously reduces the number of touch points for customers as they move around the building. So the only doors that they would physically have to touch would be the doors into the loos, which are, as anywhere where you might go to a public loo, that is the situation at the moment. You can't have holdbacks on loo doors, and any door in any pub, any restaurant, any public loo at the moment is that way. So in terms of using staff, we would use the existing staff to monitor the use of the loos, and I think it would mean an extra 1 member of staff to be able to work with that, and that person would be sited downstairs. In order to get people in safely and to encourage them to use the loo before the event, we would, under this period, use the front door, because it would be counterintuitive to get people to come in the back and then ask them to go down the stairs and then back up the stairs, because that actually has more journey time for that to happen, and that wouldn't take into account so easily a one-way system. So we would use the front doors, and we produced a flow chart of how that would happen, so that people would be asked if they want to use the loo beforehand and if they could do then. The updated capacity of the Arts Centre would be a maximum of around 50 people. And so the use of the loos, which I'm going to talk about, you know, we don't find that that's a huge amount, especially during cinema, which would probably make up 30 to 40% of our programme. There's not many people use the loos before they go before they come. Hardly anyone uses them in the middle, and a few use them at the end. So loo usage, especially on that type of event, and any event that doesn't have an interval, would be relatively low. The types of events that would be more usage would be on a comedy night where there's more drinking and more of that kind of culture for people to have drink associated rather than entertainment associated events. So with those numbers, monitoring those people's up and down and around to get to the loos would be relatively easy. We would close off the lift and only have that available to people who are requested to use it with signage. And again, that is quite a common thing in venues, to actually just say, if you need use of the lift, please ask someone. We've got while the alternative loo position was being built, once that is built, we can then start to use that provision while the committee responsible for deciding the future of the downstairs loos makes a decision as to proceed with them, so that we can then proceed with some kind of refurbishment of the downstairs loos without affecting upstairs, so that we can then run with the upstairs loos. So we've already been making the operational schedules and plans. We've got the risk assessments in place. We've carried out the majority of the maintenance that we need to, and we estimate that all of that will be complete by the end of October in order for us to open the building safely to the public. So the urgency of the decision really relates to on the ability to open the Arts Centre. I've put a provisional plan in place. So I've been talking with film programmers and live programmers, comedy programmers, and even an alternative panto provider to get things ready for us to open. And the provisional start date was in the first week of November. So in order for us to have enough time to market, get ticket sales, get staff, and get stock ordering, this is why we would need an immediate decision on whether council feel that it was safe for Colin as the designated premises officer to supervisor to say we can open the building safely with customers using the downstairs of the building. When we did announce that we were able to open, the Echo had it on their front page. The very next day, we had 2 people knock on the doors and ask when the box office was open. This is without us even announcing anything of what we were doing. So, and also some good comments on Facebook too. So I've been holding off Radio Suffolk for the interview as to what we've got planned as well. So there is an expectation out there which we need to have an answer for if we aren't going to open. So that is the situation really where we are, and the request is that we feel operationally we can safely open the Arts Centre using the downstairs loos while we put in provision on the first floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah, okay, so I've got Councillor Hanlon first, then Councillor Marks, and Councillor Brown as well.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Nick, we've only got a small loo, really. I think we've got 3 urinals in the gentleman's toilet.
Yep.
Is that right? Yeah. In most public places now, they've taken one urinal out, so it's sort of social distance when you go to the loo. I can't possibly fathom out why they do that on the actual loos, you know, where ladies loos. I can't fathom out why they block them off, because you've got a petition in between. So I can't understand that. But are we going to sort of block out the middle urinal? Thank you, Chair.
One of the reasons why I believe is that you can't control when people are coming out of those partitioned areas, so that they could all, 3 people could be in there and all come out at once and all want to use the same wash basin, same hand dryer at the same time as other people are coming into the loo. So we would look in the first instance to have a 1 in, 1 out policy with a monitored queue to use the loos. So that we could do some proper cleaning as well, so we could monitor, you know, even having someone in that corridor monitoring the queue and seeing how a 1 in, 1 out policy would work because of the low level of usage that we expect.
Okay, Councillor Marks.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Slightly agent provocateur comment, really, but I just wondered why the builder that we're going to use has got no work and why he can get materials when other builders can't. And this isn't a criticism, please don't think that, Nick. It's just slightly concerned if he's got no work, is that because he's overcharging or he's not good? I know you said you've used him before, but yeah, it's great that he can do it by the end of November. I've been caught quite a lot lately by builders who've done shoddy work and cost me a lot of money, and I'm very anxious that we don't get caught in that. I have spent a lot of time talking to people about how they feel in the community, because I thought it'd be a good thing to do a bit of a survey. And I think every comment I've got has been very positive, and people feel it's very important. They think we will go back into lockdown, which is going to be a really tough time for everybody. And everybody in this room now comes from a different background. A lot of people have got partners at home, they've got children at home, they don't live alone. A lot of us are in a very different place. We do live alone, we don't have anybody at home. And so having something to look forward to for people, for their mental health, sometimes outweighs that tiny, tiny balance of risk, because we are putting in all of the processes to manage that risk. These people go shopping. Most of them go shopping. They tell me they go shopping and they feel quite safe doing that. And these people can choose, as you say, to go to the toilet first, not attend the toilet, wear their masks and keep social distancing. So I'm absolutely fully committed to this and fully committed to all the work that Nick has put into doing it. And so I am hoping that it's going to go ahead. I don't think the programme will run for the full time, simply because I think we will go into lockdown and then we will be stopped by government. But what we can give back in the meanwhile is important. So thank you.
So if you'd like just me to answer the question about the builder is a builder who is used to working with councils and therefore doesn't take on large jobs in between. He's used regularly by West Suffolk Council for maintenance on a lot of properties. He's also employed by a large number of schools as well. So he's got a contract with the Unity Partnership. So that does allow a level of working for other people within the schedule, because some builders are set up to go and work on one job at a time, others are built to build multiple jobs at a time, whereas this particular builder is set up that they can answer at short notice calls, so they don't fill up their diaries with other work because it continually comes in from councils and schools.
Can I just ask, do we know how their prices compare? Obviously, we don't have quotes from anybody else, so it's probably quite difficult just how they compare to local builders, because I wouldn't like it to be seen that we are using one lot of builders when others are. They're not all getting an awful lot of work. Some of them are struggling, but you know, it would be just nice to know where they compare. And I guess that's a very difficult question to ask, Nick. But
it's difficult to ask. My answer probably be is that some builders would be more expensive and some builders would be less than them. There may be a smaller premium to pay because they do make themselves available to councils, because that is often how things work. If you need someone to come and carry a small repair on a roof, getting a general builder to do that while they're away is a very, very difficult thing to do. So having someone who you are able to call on at short notice and would come out to unblock a drain or come and repair a hole in a roof at 12 o'clock at night or something on an emergency. So my answer would be that their prices would be competitive, or else they wouldn't have got the contracts with the councils in the first place.
thank you, Nick. That's a very comprehensive answer. Thank you.
Brown.
Thank you, Chair. A lot's happened since we last talked about this a couple of weeks ago or so. A lot of government announcements. Infection rate is going up. Luckily enough, not so much in Haverhill, but in our area. We're seeing a lot more people, unfortunately, die, a bit more pressure on hospital, A&E and COVID wards. I really think that we're going to spend a lot of money, and I'm concerned that having 50 people and staff in a building and to do it properly, it's going to cost us, quite a bit of money, etc., etc. I honestly think that we shouldn't be using the building, and getting people in there. I think we should be concentrating on thinking outside, the box, doing stuff outside, online, things like what the Disco Kitchen people have done. For no money, they've kept the whole town entertained, or many people of the town entertained. They've raised morale, raised a huge amount of money, nearly £60,000, raised the profile of the town, and done great things. It hasn't cost Haverhill taxpayers anything. I think we should be looking at doing that sort of thing. I'm 100% outside events, the Halloween trail, etc., etc. But I just think we should be doing stuff online and out in the open, and coming up with new ideas. Unfortunately, I just do not think it's safe to have 50 people in a building, and it sends out the wrong message. I really do. I really understand that it's trying to raise people's morale, but we can do it in other ways, and people have proven that you can do it in other ways. And that's what I'd like to propose, that we do not open the building to events until the infection rate is down, which I can't see being until after Christmas. But yeah.
So I mean, the government has issued guidelines for the performing arts to enable them to return. That we would be working with very, totally to the guidelines to enable that. We make sure that performers, staff, and audiences are safe. And the feedback from a wide audience survey that included a lot of members of the Haverhill community was that they really wanted to get back to live entertainment again. Online events just don't work for a large amount of those community. There's also making sure that the artists themselves have start to have some kind of income again.
I did. Sorry if I come back. I did propose that we still carried on events, but outside, in big gazebo type things. Just start thinking of a bit of originality, how we can get people outside, do stuff like that. Totally, behind getting the acts back and all the rest of it. But I think we're just going to have to do it in a different way. That's all I'm saying. But not in a building. I just don't think it's safe.
Was that a formal proposal, Tony? Sorry, you muted. Sorry.
Yes, it was a formal proposal. Yeah.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind, I'll just let others speak first.
Yeah.
Carry on. Councillor Crooks.
Thank you, Chair. My query is demographics. When you're putting on events, obviously certain events attract a different demographic. So, if you were having an event that attracted a lot of pensioners, as we know, they're a very high risk category. But if the events were aimed at a lower age audience, the risk would be obviously a lot lower. So I don't know if any consideration on the demographics has gone into it at all. Thank you, Chair.
In terms of the programme, it would be across the full range, but we'd react to the information that we've got back from people. So when we did our surveys as to who thinks they'd like to come back and who'd like to come to things, we can profile the results of that, and they are across the range. There are pensioners and there are pensioners, but we would have some film nights, some comedy nights, some jazz nights, some events which were more suited to pensioners, but we not specifically for. And as I said, looking towards Christmas, we'd be looking to see what type of pantomime we could put on for all sorts of families. You might have seen that the government have actually supported a large-scale pantomime producer to buy seats for in huge venues. So pantomime is something which the government are supporting in terms of getting people back into the theatre by actually buying up seats for large theatres for large scale pantomimes. So the answer again is that it's across the board, and there would be some events where we would test to see whether there was a pensioner audience. There are, you know, we're not going to be running loads and loads of events, and across the first couple of months there would be 1, 2 or 3 events which would be more suited to senior citizens, but obviously they didn't come out for those. Then we could adjust the programme accordingly. So we won't programme anything yet past December.
Okay, we've got Councillor Marks again.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just going back, yeah, absolutely. You know, I absolutely support Tony. I think, you know, whatever we can do to keep people safe is crucial. But I would like to make the observation: the disco kitchen was fabulous, but it was the largely younger population who enjoyed that most of the time, and it was, as Tony rightly says, it captured the imagination enormously, and I would like to see that absolutely continue regardless of what we do. Outside events for old people in the winter, you know, they can be cold, they can be damp. We subjecting people to that actually adds to the risk greater than, you know, than being indoors to some extent. Halloween is focused at the young. We don't really have too much. I was encouraged by Nick saying that some of them are aimed at the older population, because I can tell you 5 people I've spoken to this week who are in that older group have actually said to me, unless life changes, I don't have a life anymore. And they've been in lockdown for a really long time. They're struggling. And, you know, they're really feeling now. They're at the stage where they just want to break out, because they said they would rather risk getting it than remaining in lockdown. Some old people in old people's homes have not even been allowed out into the gardens of the old people's homes. I don't understand that at all, because the gardens are safe, but the care homes are saying they can't go out in them. So I worry enormously that the people whose life haven't got that much life left, they're towards the end of their life, that we need to give them something. We need to give them something to look forward to. We need to, however small, however challenging that might be for us, we actually have a duty to those people. And many of you may have families and older people, but that's fine, because they have you. Some people actually don't have anybody. They don't have families to support them. They actually only have the council, the local people, the local people to support them, and we must be that local people.
Okay, I've got Councillor Lucarini.
Yeah, I've got a few concerns really. That I'd like to see the building open again, but the last couple of weeks are concerning. I understand what you're saying, Margaret, but we've also got to make sure we're making the right decision. We can't just open the building to help one group of people and then potentially put them at risk and the reputation of the Arts Centre at risk. When we originally agreed to do this, it was just the upstairs. It seemed a lot more manageable, easier to keep clean. This is a much bigger space, and if we are going to do this, maybe we should actually have a third-party risk assess this for us, and actually look at the risk assessments we've come up with and check they're appropriate for what we're doing. Slightly concerned about the lift, the fact people have to ask to use it. Well, obviously, if we've got lots of elderly people in the building, they can't be pressured to almost use the stairs. We could have a bit of a problem there. As for the canopy outside, have you considered talking to any scaffolders at all? We've had a structure built at work out of scaffolding with a kind of a metal roof, corrugated metal roof, which worked quite well. It might be something that could be put up fairly quick.
Thank you for your points. The aim of what we're trying to do is to something which we would see that would be at least there until April. It wouldn't be looking temporary. It would look and feel as though it was part of the Arts Centre. If it does go ahead, I've talked with Sarah Marsh with the Artistic Licence Group, which are really getting lots and lots of momentum behind that, so that it doesn't just look like a tunnel. It's actually would be decorated with artworks produced in Haverhill and with the lighting guys here, so that it doesn't just feel like an outside tunnel, but it would be lit in a theatrical way as well. So it would be more than just a temporary scaffold outside the back of the arts centre. So that is the idea behind it, is that it is a structure that is built and weatherproof. The decking area could remain there after that structure is taken down in order to provide an extra space, but it is a structure rather than a temporary scaffolded area.
Councillor David Smith.
Thank you. Now, all we can do as an organisation is to comply with any guidelines that the government comes out with, and make sure that it is as safe as it possibly can be. I know there is concerns over infection, and there's always going to be that. But ultimately, people will be their own judge as whether or not they feel safe, whether or not to go into a building. So as long as we do all that we can do to make that a safe space, it should be okay to open the building. Can I just ask Nick, how did you see this one-way system working? I mean, I've got an idea in my head how it works, but what would be the flow of people going to and from the toilet area?
The only place in which they would pass would be a small area through the door, which would be stewarded. So they would come in through the front door, go left down the corridor towards the loos, and when they go out of the loos, they carry on up the corridor, up the small amount of steps, and then down again, and then around. That would only be when we needed there to be a one-way system in place, because, as I say, that the number of people we expect to use the loos for some events is very, very small, and the gap between them going to the loo and back into the cafe could be stewarded to enough small amounts of people not to go around a one-way system if we needed that. But the one-way system would be up past the loos, around the gap, down by the media hub, and back by the history group. Again, it's what we've found in other places is that they implement the one-way system when you really, really need to, but you employ common sense when there is an opportunity to do that. And I've been to many places where that has happened, but there would be a formal one-way system.
So it mid-performance then, pardon the expression, if people wanted to use the toilets, they'd obviously both use stairs up and down. So yeah. Will the stairs be like some sort of line down the middle separation?
No, what the advice from environmental health is that when you pass people on staircases and you're not in any contact with them, it's no difference to being in a supermarket aisle to passing, as you know, Councillor Smith, there's people pass people all of the time in the street and in supermarket aisles, but people would be wearing masks, and just the fact that you're passing someone on a set of stairs, which would not be very often. It would only be when there's people coming down and going to the loo at the same time. There's no different to a number of other places, any shop or Wetherspoons, given that really. Wetherspoons toilets are upstairs. So we aren't any different to Wetherspoons in Haverhill, and I know people are going there and at the current time.
Yeah, as long as we are doing all that we can do to make it as safe as possible, then I'll be happy to support the Arts Centre reopening.
Right, Councillor Joe Mason. You're still muted.
Working? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Hi there. I find myself awfully conflicted because I find myself both in agreement with Councillor Brown and also Councillor Marks regarding the desire to have events back at the Arts Centre, and also the desire to protect people. Today, as a teacher, I taught 5 classes with up to 30 children in each class. So within a confined space, I had 30 students working with me. And of course, we've got COVID guidelines that we're following, and we're managing the risk. I'm over 50, overweight, and I don't fall into a particularly good category when it comes to, you know, if I was to be infected by COVID-19. But it's a decision that I'm making, which is going to work. I kind of have to, because we've been told that our measures that we have in place are suitable. And I'm also alive to the fact that I know that COVID-19 is in the community, albeit in low numbers at the moment. I also feel that there's a 2-week lead time. So we're talking about something now, looking at data that we've got now, but it's very hard to know where we're going to be in 2 weeks' time. So I've got a couple of questions, Nick, regarding the main hall in particular. Ventilation. Could you explain to us the ventilation that you have, and whether the air conditioning is filtered, and what's the protocol for the changing of those filters? Also, again, it sounds excessive, but we're possibly facing a spike in COVID across the country. Hopefully, we'll avoid it in Haverhill. What point of entry checks could be made? Is it possible that we could have a temperature check where somebody could possibly be asymptomatic, but perhaps have a temperature, so that we might be able to pick somebody up as they're coming in? I don't have a particular concern about corridors, provided people aren't stood there in close proximity for any length of time. People passing in corridors, well, you should see what I'm passing each and every day in corridors at school, even though we have bubbles and, you know, keeping children apart. Temporary exposure, I see no difference to being in Sainsbury's or in a supermarket. So yeah, two main questions. First, point of entry, what extra precautions could be put in place? And also the ventilation system, making sure that the main hall is properly ventilated. Thank you.
The answer is yes, we can do temperature checks. We have got one of those pointing things at it, and which we have used successfully in the office the other day. There was a slight question about GDPR with that, which we just have to make sure we include, because you effectively own that person's. There's a debate about whether you own their medical information if you find that they've got a temperature and you ask them to do something. So there's some debate around the temperature taking, which you can use, but a number of places are using it as precautionary. You see it all of the time around that it can happen. And yes, we can put that in place. We would also obviously make the advisory information to people about not coming if they have got symptoms, and offering refunds or holding things onto account if they cannot attend because they have to isolate or have any symptoms as well. In terms, sorry, that's the only point of entry thing that I can think that we could add at the current time, apart from ensuring people apply with the regulations regarding bubble sizes, etc. The intricacies of our air handling system, it's not an air conditioning system, it's an air handling system, and its primary aim is to stop the build-up of CO2 within the main hall itself. So it brings in, when we turn it on, it brings in an amount of air from the outside, and then it uses that to takes that up to the temperature that you need to have. So it raises it up to a temperature of around 22, I think 23 degrees, the ambient temperature we have in there, and then it circulates as it needs to within, bringing in air from the outside. It does the conditioning, the air handling service does go through a series of filters upstairs, and they are checked on an annual basis as part of our servicing and replaced as and when necessarily. So there's a large number of filters upstairs. There's some big thick ones and there's some big bag ones as well. So if you want me to show you, I can, but there's a number of filters within the system, within the main air handling unit.
Can I just come back on that very, very quickly, Nick? Is any air expelled out of the building, or is just air circulated?
Must be.
Must
Otherwise,
go out of the building. There's a big fan right at the back at the top, which is where it all happens from. So there is an air taking out of the building as well. Yeah, it has to take some out to take it in. Yeah, or else it would just keep filling up with air. Yeah.
Okay, is that all right, John? Yeah. Councillor Marks again. I can't see anybody else at the moment.
Yeah, sorry, can we just get some clarity from the government, because air handling systems and air ventilation and air conditioning was actually, they were not very keen on it because it circulates the air. So if you've got somebody whose mask isn't very good, or because people will not be coming in medical masks, they will be coming in their own masks, and just that we don't want any risk of any movement from that person, or if they cough. I did go into that, and I've forgotten its name, that little cafe on the high street the other day. Two of the people were wearing those lanyards saying they didn't have to wear a mask. They both had COPD. We had a big conversation about the risks they were under, and that I could evidence to them that it actually gives them no risk at all from wearing a mask. But, you know, I think it's really important that everybody does wear a mask if they come in, because for that, if they've got COPD, they really do need to be wearing one. But I do worry a bit about the air movement. I think air conditioning unit, can we please check the government guidance on that, Nick? 'Cause I think that's really quite important. I'd rather see a couple of windows open and let people be a bit cooler with things going out than actually air circulating around people. But if we could check that, I'd be grateful.
Yeah, we are looking into it, and what we have done previously is that we use the air handling in order to get air in, get it up to the temperature, and then it's turned off. So we've got the temperature there we need. We're unlikely to reach the air handlings mainly in place for CO2 control, and with the smaller number of people in the building, we're unlikely to ever reach that level of CO2 that we would trigger a reaction with people.
Okay, Councillor Furman next.
Evening. Yeah, I don't understand where Margaret's coming from in respect to people want to get out, etc. Blah blah blah. But the arts, I mean, I fully support what they're doing. I know everything's been put in place by the government guidelines. Totally support that. But is it financially viable to have 50 people in the arts centre to put an event on and spend this money out when we know in our hearts it could be locked down pretty soon?
The majority of people who we're working with at the moment are working on the basis that if you cannot do it because of government guidance, then it won't cost you anything. When we had to move the programme around before, it didn't cost us 1 penny. In terms of it being viable, the majority of the artists and the acts who we were bringing in will be on very, very low guarantees or box office splits. Yeah. So that we are going to have as many box office splits as we can, so that there will always be an income to the Arts Centre. The only things that we won't be able to get those on are if we want some of the larger comedy, that we want to have a big, we want a monthly comedy club really now, because that is going to be one of the things which will have will be able to sell 50 and bring some money in through the bar as well, which we, we'd like to try and do, because we don't want to throw any more stock away.
What about the bar itself? I mean, I've been out quite a bit lately. I've been to the Chess Cafe at London last week. Theatre functioned quite well. Tell you the truth, it's same sort of situation with the toilet situation. Everything it's quite safe. Tell you the truth. But what about the bar area? I mean, if you're having a seating event, are people? I mean, because you got to be served at the table, aren't you? I mean,
yeah, well, people will be served in their seats. We will encourage people to purchase drinks when they buy a ticket. So as soon as they bought a ticket, they have an option to buy their first round of drinks. So we're not going to be able to carry on with cask ales or beers because
no.
we haven't got enough people to keep that fresh. So we will cut down the options for people to have, as you know, we'll get some bottled beers, bottled lagers, cans, etc. So we will encourage people to have their first drink, and also to let us know about potential audience drinks, interval drinks as well. And the others will be served by at tables or at seats, by our staff. So
I'll take it, Nick. If you're going to have tables set out in the main hall, for the events,
not all of them, because tables take up space. Tables actually take out probably about 15 people. So our putting tables in takes our capacity down quite a lot. So people will either be on the rake seating or will be seated. But not at tables, unless anybody's got access to very thin tables, which we'd love to know.
But I think like most places, you have your app on your phone, you sit in your seat, you order your drink, you don't move. But that won't be a thing at the arts. They have to come and serve you at your seat where you're sitting. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Councillor Crooks.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, all the pubs are open, as we know. The Apex in Bury is open to residents, and what I've heard from Nick tonight has reassured me. So I will be voting to support the reopening of the Arts Centre. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Fox.
Hi, Nick. I've got a couple of questions. One is, are we going to extend the evening in time? Because we've got people coming in, they've got to come in a line, we've got to do the temperature, then you've got them at the interval and then going to the toilet, and you have to keep cleaning the toilet and that sort of thing. And now you're serving them drinks as well. This is just going to extend the evening, isn't it?
Only on events where we have intervals, and we will be telling people we're in a new world where quite a few of our events where they might expect intervals might not have them. Some of the events will be shorter, and we will get shows in which could be a bit shorter than might be expected. So on certain events, I estimate that the serving at tables will be the thing that could extend the time that we need, but that is most likely to be at comedy nights, where people don't mind having that extra time. We've found that, or we insert 2 intervals in. That's the other thing that we could do, 2 shorter, so that people can have that opportunity to do. In terms of getting people in, we've learned from the outside events that if we stage people, so people will be offered 2 particular times to come in. So if an event is starting at 7:30, they'll be offered a 7 to 7:15 and a 7:15 to 7:25 entry, so that we can control people. We won't have them all rushing in at once. And we found that with our outdoor events, that worked really well, and people liked the fact that they knew that they weren't going to come into queues. So again, with 50 people, that at most events that will be a maximum of 25 arrivals. In some events that will be 15 to 20 arrivals, which over the course of half an hour is not that difficult to deal with.
The other thing is I know that we rely on the older population quite a lot for some of the events, and I know where Margaret's coming from, but my mum, as an example, is in her 70s. My dad died last year, so she's on her own, and they used to go to Gainsborough a lot for live events. But now, although she tries to go out once a week, she stays in because she feels safer staying in. She might be fed up staying in, but she stays in. Is this going to affect us if we've got people like her in Haverhill?
We've done some quite extensive research, not so recently, but across the country, and it's across the population that people are looking to return to see live events. That's what we found out when we did our outdoor events as well. that people said that they would be coming back to indoor events, and I really can't walk down the street without someone asking me when we're open again. I was shopping last night and there were hardly anyone in there, and I still got asked about it, and we have people knocking on the doors about it too. So there is a support out there. It is, you know, it's not, I can't say hand on heart I can guarantee that everything is going to be totally successful, but what we're looking at is trialing things over the course of the next 2 months to see what is working, and we can get a good idea of that. There will, you know, when we did the survey early on in the year, I think there was about 12% of the population that we surveyed said that they weren't ever going to come out until a vaccine was found, and there are those people there, and we're never going to get those back until a vaccine is around for the rest of the population. That's going to potentially be a number of years anyway. So in terms of the demographics of people who are coming, we would work to try to make sure that there was something there for them to come to. But obviously, if after a couple of months the events which were primarily aimed at senior citizens weren't working, then we would be able to limit those.
Okay, thank you.
So no one else wanted to speak? I can't see anyone. Okay, in that case, I've got a few, obviously. I do have some problems about the bar reopening, personally. I think these events are only going to have 50 people, and we know from reality, when you have an event in the arts centre, you probably only get about 25% of people actually go to the bar an interval anyway. So we could be opening the bar for 10 or 12 people, which is certainly a waste of I'll call it person power, the person doing the bar, and also any stock that we have which may run out. So I have a problem there. None of us, I don't believe, other than you, Nick, and maybe Colin, have seen any risk assessments, flowcharts, or anything to make our own independent view of whether those risk assessments are valid or not. Certainly, I, for one, have done risk assessment many, many times over the years for various things, from safety right down to wherever it might be. So I would have liked to have seen those. The temperature side of things coming in, I think that's probably mandatory. And I noticed when I went for my flu jab on Saturday, they actually used one they put in your ear or some sort, and I don't know whether whether there's a subtle difference, and maybe Margaret can tell us, I don't know, between the two, of the one that you point at your forehead and the ones I find you point at the forehead always tells me that my temperature is about 20 degrees, which shouldn't be right, of course. And the other thing I have is, even if we get all these things, whether 50 people or whatever, I am concerned a bit about how we stop the same people basically bulk booking the same thing. So we're only going to have 50 people for an event. There's 28,000 people living in Haverhill. How do we ensure that people don't just block book things all the time, so it's the same 50 faces in the auditorium? Because that would certainly not go down at all if that happened. Thank you.
Okay. I mean, the bar, as far as I understand it, the town council staff are all going to remain town council staff at the current time. So bringing staff in to work on something no one's going to be working any extra hours as a result of this. And as I said, we would actually be encouraging we will be able to encourage people to buy, whereas we don't normally do that. We will be able to ask them to buy in advance. So again, it's not, if you've ever been to a comedy night, John, then the people buy 3 or 4 drinks during the course of the evening, and most people buy at least 2. So that for an event like that, there are a number of events where people just sit there and don't come in. But it's not to say that we can't service those people. Risk assessments, once they are passed and provided to Colin, we would be putting them on to the website, I think. So that's what a number of the venues do, so that people can physically see what you are doing in terms of COVID safety. and the COVID safe risk assessments that we do are on health and safety executive template, which we have been doing, which we did for the outdoor events, and which we are doing for all of our venues. So we're doing following the guidelines in terms of how they are done and how they are set out. So the health and safety executive provide a template. The flowcharts that we've done are to show how people get in the building and around the building during the course of they've just been developed up, and they were sent over to Colin today to show how we could do that with the two different options for the two different loos that we options that we could potentially have. The temperature check, I mean, it's not mandatory. I don't think I don't know anywhere that has made it as conditional, and some places are saying it only can ever be used as an add-on, because it never doesn't really prove anything, which is what the government say about it at airports. But we can certainly use that as part of our palette. And in terms of block bookings, I'm not aware that don't feel that is going to happen. People generally, I mean, if there was a thing about recently about over the course of the population, people go to the cinema twice a year. So just because it's there, it's not just going to make them suddenly book it up. So we do have regular bookers. You know, Mr. Wendell was a regular booker at a lot of our events, but we would never say not for him to come. And if the program became so successful that we needed to put on more nights, then we've got numerous other nights, because we're only actually planning to work across 3 nights at the, 3 nights a week at the current time. So I'm not aware that block booking would be an issue, because it isn't an issue in real life.
No, obviously you have 4 times as many capacity for a show as well than 50. I'm talking about. You have 210 seats, of course.
Yeah, but if you look at the attendance of people who attend our, it's people don't come 5, 6, 7 times a year to things.
No. But I just want to make sure that because we're a quarter of the capacity,
yeah,
we didn't want to. It worked. Logically, it works. In theory, it's 4 times the potential for it. The other couple of things before we get back to Margaret. What are we? We're talking about events where the public come to. As you know, Aaron and I have suggested about live streaming stuff. I'm still very keen, and Tony obviously mentioned live streaming events if performers are willing to allow that to happen. Because that will get to the other 27,000 odd people if necessary, or more, and that's been very successful elsewhere. But also what are we doing about just general community events? Like we often have I don't know, it's not line dancing, but that sort of thing that we held in the arts centre. Although we can't have the same number of people, are we encouraging that back again?
We haven't had any appetite for that to return. The line dancing group have come and said that they're not interested in returning until next year. So the majority of the dance groups find it difficult to comply with the guidelines that they would need to do. And a lot of the groups who are run by more elderly folk are just not wanting to have those type of events at the current time, partly because they've got to wade through lots of government guidance in order to make them work. So we haven't had any, we've had the line dancing people say that they will not be coming back until another time during the course of the year. So we are looking to open as an entertainment venue first before we open as a community space.
What about the live stream side of things?
Live stream side of things, yeah, that's definitely a possibility if we have the technology to do that. I'm not totally aware of how we handle things like PRS on that, so I'd have to look. I'd have to look at what effects and ask other places that have got live streaming of events. So there are some places. It hasn't worked out great on the venues that I've talked to. there was one which was more successful, where they live screened a full house thing, so that people paid a small amount to watch it on live stream as well. So it's certainly something which we could possibly look to go in. But I think first and foremost, we need to get, if we are going to open, we need to get ourselves open as a venue, and then introduce things if we can. But yeah, if we've got that technology and can offer it, then let's do it.
Yeah. Before Margaret comes back, is David Roach? I lost David. There you are.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, thanks, John. Just a couple of quick questions. I have no view one way or the other. I think, you know, we can make it work if we open it, or as Tony's just trying to do more outside things. It's a question of, if we're paying artists or stuff to reopen the venue, are we going to actually just open it up and then start losing money because we're paying out more? So I see from Nick shaking his head, he's happy that's not the case. But I just want to make sure that if we open it up, we're not just throwing money away in having it open and not actually achieving anything from that.
As anything, events would be budgeted to break even or make money. That can't be guaranteed. Films, you pay a guarantee up to a certain entry on, and as I said, what we would try to do with artists wherever possible would be to negotiate a box office split, where the artist goes away with some money and guarantees a level of income to the venue as well. So as many places, as many things as possible, we would look to do a box office split, and that would include the pantomime, which we are pantomime type event that we're looking to put in. I should mention, you know, we're quite lucky to work with a provider who can be quite flexible in what they can offer.
Of course, the other thing now, we haven't any competition for our cinema offering.
No, we haven't got any competition within Haverhill at the current time. It has affected well, we don't know quite yet whether it's affected our programming ability, because our film is programmed by someone who works for picture houses, and picture houses are part of Cineworld. So the film programmer, as of the end of last week, did not know what the future of their virtual programming was. But we do have other options if we need to. But yes, it could be advantageous in some ways. It's terrible that Cineworld, you know, can't open, but that we may get some spillage over.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, on the basis that, sorry, before Margaret comes in, about the like the Dirty Dancing at the outside event, I'd be just looking at getting some DVDs and showing them on the big screen, you know, of films, even though the people might have them in their library at home, they still tend to come out, as long as the price is right, of course. Margaret, lost you. There you are. Sorry.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So just on the question of temperature, which, to be honest, is a bit of car crash. First of all, it depends how well people take your temperature. Secondly, if you've travelled in an air-conditioned car or in the winter, you walk through the cold, you know, you're going to get a really low reading. And we've seen readings where I would say to people, if they really had that reading, I would have them in a medical room upside down with hot fluid running through their body. And equally, I've seen people arrive in horse boxes with horses with no air conditioning, come from Ireland, and we've had to stand them on the side of the road for 20 minutes because they're so hot. So the ones that you stand near the forehead really are ridiculous. The one you had put in your ear is more accurate. It does have a little cover on the end, so there's absolutely no risk to any patients. They get flicked off, the whole thing gets wiped over. So please don't ever be concerned if people are sticking them in your ear, because they won't work without the cover on. So the cover actually acts as a little switch, effectively. So if they haven't put the cover on, it won't work. So if they put it on, it's not working, you need to be a bit worried. They are more accurate. And the only really accurate one is to actually stick it in a place where it's only done post-death. So to be fair, I don't think we'd be allowed to do that. I think we might be breaching GDPR quite badly. With regard to GDPR, you know, I think I said this the other day, we have to stop using capacity and consent and GDPR as a reason not to do things. You know, we are absolutely damaging people. We are damaging the opportunity to help people because we are being too cautious. And frankly, I've seen so much GDPR in the health chucked out the window since March, and nobody has come to any harm. So these are minor GDPR issues, and I'm afraid I'm saying it openly, and I will say it openly. If it means me helping somebody, I will chuck GDPR out the window, and you can quote me. Can I just ask, paper towels in the toilet? I know we've actually got a blower, which is absolutely awful, but I do know that paper towels and putting them in a plastic bag, tying them up at the end of the day is part of the new governance for being in toilets. Do you know if we've got that in place, please? And finally, I have been asked by a couple of people, only a couple I have to say, but whether you would consider bingo. So just don't chuck it at me, but it was just a thought. There are people in the town who used to go, I think, to the football club, to a bingo event, and loved it enormously. And, you know, these things are very uplifting for people. So that's my answer regarding your medical questions. And I'll probably be in the press tomorrow to say that I've chucked GDPR out the window. I'll probably be sued.
Okay, Margaret, while you were talking, Nick had to go get a glass of water. But Margaret was just asking about, instead of using the air dryers in the toilets, whether you use paper towels. That's what you're saying. And also whether you've considered putting on bingo community events.
Yeah, we had a discussion with one of the people who were looking about refurbishing the loos about paper towels and hand dryers, and there's a big debate about what is safer, because really what's happening when people use a hand dryer is they're doing that on clean hands which have already been washed. So that there is a school.
Nick, can I just jump in here? There was massive evidence done by the Nursing Times to evidence that actually, you know, if you look in the bottom of the dryers, particularly the Dyson ones, and they've wiped that out and they've looked at the droppings, and you're relying on people washing their hands properly. And frankly, the public don't wash their hands properly. They just don't. So you're not getting cleaner, and it's blowing around. So whatever is on the sleeves of their jacket, actually, I did the audit for Fornham All Saints with their, I looked at their health and safety policy for opening, which they have got through the audit, and the governance was that they had to have paper towels, they had to be put in a plastic bag, and they had to be tied up at the end of the day. So can we just double check, please? But I am absolutely certain that blowers were on the list of things, because it's an air generating procedure effectively, you know, just like dentists can't use things with air generating procedures. So if you would like to just check that, I'd be really grateful. Thank you.
And the other thing that Margaret mentioned was about whether any desire, have you had any calls for bingo?
We haven't, the people who run bingo in the Arts Centre haven't asked to come back. In terms of us being operating socially distanced bingo, we have using tables and one person at a table. We wouldn't have a lot of space for that. We certainly would have. It would certainly have to go into the main hall. I mean, I suppose we could look at an approach for that. It would mean a big cleaning regime after the bingo was over. But yeah, I suppose it is a possible thing. If somebody came to us and asked, could the space be used for bingo? It's something we could consider.
Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks everyone for everyone's comments. Been very interesting listening to it all. I still do not think, with a rising COVID infection rate that's happening in the last 2 weeks, that I honestly don't think that we should be opening the Arts Centre. Just think it's sending out a bit of the wrong message. I think, as I said previously, that we should do stuff outside, start thinking a little bit differently, see what we can do. But one of the ideas that John said I thought was really good. You know, why do we not get someone to come into the Arts Centre, artist, comedian and such like, and we'll live stream it out to as many of the public as we can, music, etc. Call it the Big Haverhill Night Out, something like that. We're not going to make a lot of money by having a maximum of 50 people and thing, but the morale boost that we'd be doing to the town by trying to live stream out, comedy, music, etc., could be a real boost over the winter months. So I think that's something we should do, and some outside stuff. But I still personally, and I know everyone else is leaning towards the other way, but I honestly personally don't think for safety that with the rising COVID rate that it'd be a good idea. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Fox again.
It's more of a statement, really. I go on to these things on Eventbrite. I don't know if you know what that is. And I normally pay a minimum of £5. And like last week, I just walked along the beach. I didn't actually walk along the beach in the Thames, but, I paid £5 for that. So you could charge a reasonable amount for live streaming.
It's technology. Depends. I mean, from my view, if you're paying an artist to come in, you may get, I don't know, 500 quid income perhaps from the thing, but would you rather spend the £500 on just giving it out to the thing? It depends on I think as Nick said, the PRS and all the other thing, and the artists themselves may not want their stuff being broadcast.
It's also we would want to ask our audience whether it be something that they would be interested in. Really, the arts centre audience are the arts centre audience. The wider audience that could be part of it, they're another audience that we could tap into. But in order, the primary aim of the arts centre is a live entertainment venue, and there hasn't been big calls for us to do live streaming, and I do talk with other venues that have tried it, and it is very limited to success of it that you could want, because there is so much else out there. You'd have to get exactly the right thing for people to sit at home in front of their computer watching and paying to do that. It'd have to be the right thing.
Right, is there anybody else? Oh, sorry, Dave Smith. Sorry, Councillor Dave Smith. I think I saw him. Then Paul Furman after that.
It's all right. It's Nick really covered it there. I think the idea of this is live entertainment. I mean, if you're going to stream something, you might just watch something on the telly anyway. The idea is that we get it open for people to actually attend performances.
Councillor Furman?
Yeah, I don't agree at all. I mean, in the current situation, we've got to make the best of what we got. I mean, with live stream, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bands, a comedian, a couple of soul singers, and we've had over 700 people at a time watching them. I mean, and that's only through Facebook. I mean, there's other ways of doing it through Google, etc. I mean, it is true. I love live music, and I've been to the Jazz Cafe last week, and I visited. I felt quite safe, but it's just not the same, and I wouldn't go back. And I personally think we're in for a bit of a bad time now. I think we should just wait. Because why open up, then bang, we're closed down again in 3 or 4 weeks. Well, that's just my personal opinion, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. That's fine. I know Colin Paul would like to speak. Just before that, I do agree with Councillor Lucarini, who mentioned about scaffolding. I would actually have no problem with just having a temporary scaffolding thing there, rather than big wood. Wood is 4 times as expensive as it was a year ago, because basically the supplies are just not there. From the places they come from, Canada and Norway and all these places, and elsewhere, Indonesia and places like that. And that's why, a friend of mine just had a quote redone for a lost extension, and the wood is £17,000 compared to it was actually 4,000 a year ago when he first asked. So I'd be very reluctant to just do something just because it's, I know it's a grade 2 listed building and everything, but this is, my view is, in many ways, I would actually say just put some toilets outside, and if people want to get wet, if it's raining, so be it. I'd much rather get wet than get COVID, I must admit. That's my personal view. I don't know what others think about that. Colin, do you want to speak?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you to all the councillors for their questions, etc. It's been very, very useful, and thank you, Nick, for the answers you've given, and also for the work that you and Gary have done in the meantime. I have had the advantage of reading the risk assessments today, and I can say that they are very comprehensive. Just in terms of some of the things that have been said, I think it is important that if we are, we've heard quite a lot of things that can be done, and I think we need to make it clear that these are things that need to be done, and so that if councillors are reassured, then the things that reassure them go on to actually take place. So I think certainly in terms of temperature measurement, that seems a very sensible thing. You see it all the time happening in other places that people are being checked, and it doesn't seem to me to be an unreasonable thing to do. And in terms of making sure urinals are closed off and individual toilet stalls are closed off, and we're going to need to have an awful lot of signage. I do think it will be possible to serve drinks, and it shouldn't be too expensive. I do take on what Nick says, that of course we are paying all our staff their average wage anyway, and with the new government scheme, whilst it doesn't really suit us, it does make the point that what we need to do is try and have as many staff working some hours as is possible. So if we need to bring additional people in, then there's no reason not to. But when you're doing interval drinks, it's very simple. There's nobody in the bar because they're all sitting in the auditorium, and you've got a list of drinks to serve. You serve them up and you put them on the bar ready for people to take their drinks. The proposal for people to buy their drinks with their tickets means that we can actually have everything ready long beforehand, so we don't have to staff up to cope with a mad rush, because it's actually entirely within our gift how quickly we serve up those drinks for people. People probably saw my face when it was mentioned that the events were going to were budgeted to break even or make a profit. I suspect that isn't including the staffing costs or the fixed overheads of the Arts Centre, because if it is, it's the first time in history that the Arts Centre's managed to do that. So yes, we will lose money, but we know that. We know that when we set every annual budget. If arts centres around Britain made profits, then they'd be run by commercial organisations and not councils. So we will lose money doing this if that's the way we want to regard it. The question really is whether or not the cost of the activities are worthwhile doing and whether it's actually safe to do it. I think we need to investigate the towel business and decide whether or not we need to change those, put in paper towels for the time being. It's certainly far cheaper to temporarily put in paper towel dispensers than it is to temporarily put in electric ones. So that probably isn't too expensive to do. One thing that wasn't discussed, and I think, Nick, it might be useful to do it, is we did touch on programming. And when you talked to me today, I got the impression that the reality is that whilst you aspire to 3 events a week, you're actually struggling a bit to find cinema programming. So if we're talking about between opening and the external toilets being able to be used, that actually we're only talking about a handful of events that gives us the chance to test our systems. That seems to me to be safer than having 20 events But I got the impression from our discussion today that actually the number of events that would take place during November, which is actually the month we're talking about, probably won't even reach that sort of number. So I wonder if you could probably just explain that a bit more to councillors and your prediction of how many events we're actually talking about before the external toilets can be done. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm just going to have to quickly look at my Excel while I'm doing this while I'm speaking. So.
Got Tony waiting to speak as well. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm there now. So
okay, fine.
Yeah, in terms of films, I mean, obviously, what's envisaged that film programming will become easier because films are still being released. So once lockdown stopped, obviously the large-scale films got put onto other platforms. We did have films which we weren't able to show, which we had to stop because of lockdown, which we can bring back, which haven't been shown on other platforms as well. And there are also a number of live screen or recorded live screen ones. So up until Christmas, the film program is relatively healthy. In terms of the number of events during November, because I'd got a provisional program in place, and once this problem reared its head, I stopped programming. I've talked to people about events, but in the provisional program, which is waiting to go, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 films and 1, 2, 3, 5 live events during November, and then there's the first weekend of December. There's a film and a live, but the way programming operates, the things that I had put in for the 5th and the 6th are no longer on the program. So yes, there's approximately potentially 11 events up until December.
Colin, did you have anything else? Okay. Tony?
No.
Sorry, Colin. Councillor Brown?
Yeah, cheers, Chair. It's just going back onto the point that Colin raised again around costs, etc. How much, say we had an audience of 30 people, how much would that actual event cost to put on? And the difference between a live event, say we had a comedian and an audience of say 50 people for that, and an average say film audience of 30, because I presume a film's a lot cheaper to put on than a live event. How much is that actually costing? How much per head is that going to cost the taxpayers of Haverhill to put on?
If we got 30 people into a film, then if we're talking about simply money in versus money out, 30 people, we're looking at a pricing structure. We're looking at a slightly revised pricing structure as well, with the consideration that we of making events which could cost £5, £7.50, 10, 12.50, 15. So we're going to do price structure, and the films would be looking at £5 for senior citizens and £7 for 50 for adults, which is still a lot cheaper than most cinemas. So a film generally works on that you need to reach £100. You pay between £80 and £100 to get a film in.
Yes.
Then that is your minimum guarantee. Then after that, there's a percentage of the money.
Yeah.
So if you had 30 people in at £7.50, that's around 225 quid or something like that. I don't know, is that my maths?
No.
But what about all the staff costings, etc., to run the event? That's what I'm saying. Is that if we've got 200-300, which we can't put in there, if we had 200-300 people in an event and we're losing money on it, we're having to spend money just to keep 30 people entertained, and where we could be pushing that money in another direction to get a lot more people entertained. And I'd just rather spend money on getting the biggest bang that we can for our buck, as it were.
The current plan for the town council, as I understand, is not to make any changes with their staffing structure. So there is no extra money being spent by having staff working, providing entertainment. Those staff would be brought in. There would be no additional costs to the town council by asking those staff to work rather than to not work. So they are there. There is obviously a cost to opening the building, but then there might be income generated in other ways. There's the money that people donate when they book at the moment, which we're noticing even with the Halloween trail, and then they may have additional income to the arts centre by spending that through the bar. So a comedy night, we're looking at the deal that we would do, but again, that would be budgeted on something around a £15 ticket. That would bring in 750 quid, and the deal for comedians is somewhere between 500 and 650 for the comedy nights which we bring in, which again, there would be a small income based on ticket sales against the amount that you pay out. And that's how the Arts Centre has operated for a number of years, in that the pure money, in terms of money coming in for a film or a live event against money going out, that makes us money. But the costs of putting those things on have always, in the last 25 years of the Arts Centre, been subsidised by the council taxpayer. So there is no difference. We're not going to lose any more money during this course of this thing, because we're not going to be taking the risks on events. We're going to be putting on some very low risk events. We're not going to, there aren't any plans to put on something which is costing £2,000 to put on, which will bring in 500.
Yeah. What I'm saying is it's not going to be reaching very many people. That's my problem with it. And we've got a fixed cost. And when we're running normally in non-COVID times, we're trying to get as many people into the Arts Centre as we can, which is great. But what I'm saying is now we're going to restrict it to a maximum of 50 people. That's not a lot. Whereas we could be utilising our staff in different ways to reach a lot more people. That's my point, really. Yeah. Cheers, Nick.
Okay. Oh, Councillor Hanlon. You're still muted. Try now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Right. Sorry. It's obviously, if we put on outside events and what have you, there's no guarantee that we might even lose more money doing it that way. There's no guarantee because of the weather and all sorts of things, especially we've had lately. So, thinking, as Colin said, even when we took over the Arts Centre on my early days, we all knew then that we was never going to make money, and it was always going to be the council payer that subsidised it. And I feel generally that people love live events. It's completely different to watching it on the television. Same as me as a football supporter. It's completely different going to a live event than watching it on television. It's much better, and my view is, obviously, yes, we're going to lose money, and that's how it's always been. But we might lose a lot more money on live events.
Anybody else? I can't see you, Councillor Lucarini, so I have no idea if you want to talk. I presume not. Okay. All right. Well, look, we have a proposal from Councillor Brown to basically not reopen the Arts Centre to events, but instead use outside somehow with live streaming or whatever. I think that's really what you said, isn't it, Tony? Yeah. So is there a seconder for that? Doesn't look like there is a second.
What was that? I missed that. Sorry.
Sorry, Paul. I was just saying that Tony very early on proposed we don't reopen
Oh,
the
yeah,
art.
I'll second it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Right then. So I mean,
you need to vote on the amendment, John. Tony's put in an amendment to the proposal, so you need to vote on the amendment first, don't you?
No, I
Where's
don't.
the amendment? He
Tony
didn't
hasn't
put
put an
amendment. Did he?
He proposed vote. He hasn't changed. You haven't changed anything, have you, Tony?
I thought we had an original proposal that was whether we open the Arts Centre or not. Am I confused here, or I thought that's what we were looking at tonight?
No, we've only had the one proposal, haven't we? Unless Colin knows something else, but I never did.
Okay, all right. Sorry, my mistake.
Yeah, just for clarification, the agenda item wasn't a proposal by a councillor, so the only proposal made so far is that by Councillor Brown.
I personally have got some problems with not thinking about scaffolding and all that sort of stuff. I don't think we should be waiting for a builder, regardless of whether he's good or not. I presume he. So I'm certainly not happy about that, but that's by the by. Right, so can we have I don't think there's any amendments or anything being proposed, so can we have a vote on that proposal that we don't open the Arts Centre and instead look at outside events and live streaming as well?
Sorry, can I just check about the outside events? Would that be organised outside events in an alternative space or venue? And I just like.
Nick, that's personally, I'd leave that to you and the events team. You've got a lot more experience of arranging things like that. I'd hand that totally over to you and say, what can you do? Use your imagination, etc., etc. And obviously, if the council's got ideas, throw that in. But that's what my idea is, that we do as much as we can outside to engage with as many people as we can outside and live stream events from the arts centre without the general public being in there. That's my idea. That's all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So all those in favour of that proposal, please show. Paul, I think I can see. And I'm going to add my voice to that because I don't like the fact that we're waiting for one builder to do anything. I think we need to just get on with putting something temporary out the back, and then I'd be a lot happier. So, okay. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Any abstentions while we're here? Councillor Stinchcombe, Councillor Davidson. Right, so that motion is rejected. So, Councillor David Roach.
Can I propose then, John, considering your last comment, that we actually get on and do the outside work with the temporary toilets or whatever they are anyway, because we're going to have to do it when we reopen it. So propose to get that work done, because we're going to need to do it, and then see where we go from there.
Okay. Councillor McManus.
I would like to propose that we go ahead and open the Arts Centre following government guidelines. The staff and Nick and Colin are not going to be stupid in this. I think we need to get things ball rolling and get it open for people's well-being, and obviously for the taxpayer that is actually providing the Arts Centre. That's my comment.
Okay. Let me, before I go on to Councillor Marks, was there a seconded? Councillor Roach's thing, because obviously this is going to be an amendment. So Councillor Mason, were you seconding Councillor Roach's? Yeah. So are you now proposing an amendment, Councillor McManus?
I'm proposing an additional. I'm proposing an additional.
Okay. Right. Councillor Roach, would you accept that?
Yeah, I think just for clarity for Elaine, I think they're two different things. One is to get the work done, so that's a proposal, we can do that. And I think Elaine's proposal to actually open the Arts Centre is a substantive view after we've done that.
Okay,
so
well, let's
just try to keep it simple for you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, that's fine.
But they're not exclusive or amendment. One is to do the work, and the other is whether or not we open the Arts Centre.
Okay. All right. So let's do it on the basis of the work then. So Councillor Roach has proposed, and I guess Councillor Mason, you're happy to second that at the moment? Yes, you are. Can we? So we've got a proposal seconder to just get on with doing something at the back, whether it's scaffolding or whatever. And I don't know whether Colin or Nick has got any comments on that at the moment. Colin?
Can I just ask? I thought David meant to do the work on the toilets.
Yes, upstairs.
Not the ones downstairs.
No, not mine. No.
Oh right, okay.
Sorry.
Yes, my understanding is that this is not a proposal against opening.
No.
This is simply to underline the fact that we will build the external toilets, get on and do that, and then the separate matter is the one that Councillor McManus is suggesting, that we really do what the agenda item says, but they're not against each other in any way.
No, not at all. That's why I asked the question. Yeah. But can we have a show of hands then, that we just get on with trying to do something upstairs? Oh, sorry, are you happy? Sorry, before you put your hands up, sorry, Councillor Liz Smith, you didn't want to speak, did you? No, that's fine. That's fine. All right, you were very quick. Your hand. Sorry. Sorry. All those in favour then, please, of getting on with the toilets upstairs. Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Is that right, Colin? All those against? None. Abstentions? Any abstentions? That proposal? No. Okay, that's carried then. Now, proposal to reopen the Arts Centre, presumably once we get the toilets sorted out. Was there a second to that? Was that what you were, Councillor Marks, were you planning to second that? Okay.
Can I just, sorry, John, you just said, is that when we get the toilets? But what the request tonight was to be allowed to open the Arts Centre with the existing toilets while we get the other one built. That was what came to council for tonight.
Right, but what we're saying is we should not be dismissing the ability to just put a temporary structure out the back, whether it's made out of scaffolding poles or something else.
No, I haven't.
Just because the build is not available.
I'm not suggesting that, John. I mean, the suggestion is that the work goes on out the back, but we may not be able to get that done in time, whatever happens.
Well, scaffolding could be done in 24 hours, Nick. We do it all the time. I don't know. And I guess, sorry, Councillor Roach.
Just to make it really, really simple, doing the work to get the toilets done is a project that can go on. I think Councillor McManus's view is proposal is that we just open it up as per the papers have said to start with, and they're not exclusive of each other. So we can do that work, but we can also open up the Arts Centre if that's approved by council. So I think that makes it really, really simple.
Yeah.
One isn't dependent on the other.
Councillor Hanlon?
Yeah, I fully agree with what Councillor Roach has said. It's just an extra cost and an extra inconvenience. If we put scaffoldings up as well, then it's got to come down. There might be delay in getting the scaffolding down, all sorts of things like that. I agree, John, you want to get it done as quick as possible, but I think it'd be an hindrance more than a help.
Sorry, Councillor Hanlon, we're not proposing not doing something upstairs. That's always going to happen. What we're saying is just get something done quickly upstairs, and it may or may not be done. You know, if we can get the toilets sorted out, put some, whether it's scaffolding or something, that can be done very quickly rather than waiting for a builder to come up with a load of wood, which is 4 times more expensive than it normally is. Just something temporary. Councillor Mason. So you're muted, Joe.
Yeah, sorry, it's a fiddly thing. My understanding of the motion that Councillor Roach put forward, that I seconded, was that we went ahead with the buildings programme and not a temporary structure. That's my interpretation of what Councillor Roach proposed, and that's what I seconded, and not a lesser scaffolded construction.
Okay, well, the wooden structure is only going to be temporary either as well. We're not proposing building a whole brick-built toilet block out the back. That's a massive investment. Sorry, Councillor Lismith.
Yeah, I would agree with what Joe was saying. I thought it was just to go ahead with what we agreed previously at our previous meeting. I don't think putting temporary scaffolding up is necessary if we're going to reopen. If we all accept Councillor McManus's proposal that we go ahead with the downstairs toilets at the moment, and just open when we can, you know, as soon as we can, then I don't think there's any need to put temporary structures such as scaffolding up.
So you're saying that we're never going to put any toilets upstairs at all in the next 6 to 8 months?
No, we will do, because that was the quote that Nick got, didn't he? Was for
no temporary toilets upstairs.
Oh, temporary, yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought you were saying about some scaffolding as something separate.
No, what I was suggested by Councillor Lucarini was they, instead of waiting for a builder to try and find some wood, and he's not available at the moment, it's just to get scaffolding up there with some toilets out there, so you can actually open a lot easier with toilets upstairs.
Okay, so
why does it have to be wood, for example?
Yeah. So are you saying then that we wouldn't want to open until we've got those in place, or are we going to go ahead?
No, not at all. Not at all. What we're saying is it'll be a lot quicker to put something like scaffolding up. And, you know, we're not talking about, you know, that's potentially could be hidden by something. You know, what I'm saying is about the structure of the temporary thing, rather than waiting for a builder to come up with perhaps an over-engineered wooden structure, which will cost us a lot of money, which at some point in the future, we've just got to get rid of. At least with scaffolding, you know, you hand the scaffolding back to the scaffolding company, don't you?
Sorry, John, can I just ask, why would we have to get rid of it? Because won't it be really useful to have some toilets upstairs?
Yeah, but if they're only temporary toilets, then if we're going to go for something, ultimately we're probably going to have planning permission and everything else. If it becomes a permanent structure, you have to have planning permission. Particularly as a Grade 2 listed building. Any comments, Colin?
Well, the motion that was proposed and carried was to build the outside toilets arrangement anyway. In terms of the most expedient way of doing it, I think if the proposal by Councillor McManus is carried, then there isn't an overriding rush to build the outside toilets. We expect them to be built within the month, but rather than build them within a matter of, as you said, 24 hours, isn't strictly necessary. But it could be, building on your point about the availability of building materials, that the only way it could be built is to use some form of scaffolding. And I think that councillors probably just need to leave the arrangements to I imagine it's Nick and Gary who are talking to the builders to find, you know, the most expedient way of actually doing it, rather than attempt to design it in council when we don't know what the availability of the materials would be like. And I'm sure, you know, we've heard people's views and concerns about costs and can take that all into account. But we will get something built. But if it turns out to be scaffolding, it will be scaffolding because to build it out of anything else was either prohibitively expensive or simply not available.
Yeah.
Can I make the point that the timber that I'm talking about is to put on the outside. The structure is going to be made from a metal frame with uprights, but if it's going to be attached to the building, then that's what I've been asked to do, is attach something to the building. So having a scaffolding structure is not necessarily what I've been asked to do. So there's certainly options to look at an alternative way of putting a structure on, but the structure that we would be looking to put on in a more permanent, a more built way would be something which would be there likely to be there for a number of months, which looks to be part of the building rather than some scaffolding on the outside, and would be constructed because it's got to hold people, it's got to be waterproof as far as it can be, and we want it to be an integral part of what we're doing. But yeah, we can certainly look to see if a scaffolding structure would fulfill all of the criteria that we need in order to construct what we need to. And with any builder, it's going to be looking at how they fit that in to their thing. It may be that we can do it quicker. It's not necessarily going to be a hold up. So we can certainly look at what structure it is.
Okay, this may be a job for the tendering group, by the way. Anyway, so we had Councillor McManus, seconded by Councillor Marks, assuming nobody else wants to talk, to reopen the Arts Centre, regardless of whether or not that temporary structure is available upstairs or not, using the existing downstairs toilets. So can I have a show of hands, please, for that? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for Councillor Smith, 8 for Councillor Mason. Okay, all those against, please. 1, 2. I'm not happy about these things. I have 3 against. Any abstentions, please? 1, 2. Okay. All right. That's carried anyway. Thank you very much. Right. Okay. On the paperwork now. Right. Date of next meeting. And I would appreciate. Thanks for, by the way, all your. It was a great discussion. I thought. Great open meeting. Agenda item 5, which is dated for full council, which is Tuesday the 27th of October. And unless anybody's got anything else, I'll declare the meeting closed at 20:48. If you'd like to stop the live stream, Colin.